Hello, friends. We now invite you to join us for the Animation Academy. Please welcome your sketch artist, Lon Smart.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the EPCOT International Festival of the Arts. I hope everyone's doing great. One moment, please. I gotta get a piece of paper. Can't draw without paper, can you? No, you bought your paper. I need to get my paper. Thank you very much. So my name is Lon Smart. I've been working with Disney about 30 years or so as an artist. I started at Feature Animation, where I worked on a bunch of movies like Lion King, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Lilo and Stitch, Don't Tell Me, Tarzan, Brother Bear, and Princess and the Frog, one of my favorites. And then I moved over to live entertainment and Imagineering, where I do a lot of character art for the parks now, doing some concept art, keeping me busy. Paper, I told you to stay put. Darn wind. Oh, a little sneak preview of what you're gonna get here. So, yeah, actually one of the projects I worked on was like the 50 golden statues for the 50th anniversary, which was a huge treat to work on. So I'm gonna center this. So what we're gonna do, now who was here for the last session? Oh good, okay, so you're gonna get a pair, because we're gonna draw Max, because we drew Goofy earlier, and now we're gonna draw Max. I'm gonna line this up just right. There. Now what we did before, if you remember, we drew from a reference. You know, we use those model sheets whenever we draw for our films. And no difference this time, Max. Now, even though I've drawn characters like Mickey and Goofy and Max hundreds of times, I always try to learn with every single drawing that I do. So I use a model sheet, and you can use these wherever you can find your references, because you want to improve with every drawing you do. You want to get better. So it's all about looking and learning and studying as you go. So I'm going to slide this over just a little bit more. Now, I'm going to look at it. Now, how we're going to draw this is, I'm basically not going to teach you how to draw Max. I'm going to teach you how to draw so you can draw any character you want. I'm going to teach you the process that we use whenever we draw a character, because we're constantly getting new characters in. And how do we if I'm going to draw Maribel, brand new character, how do you draw her? So there's a process that we do for learning any character. So I'm going to give you a walkthrough. Watch what I do first, and then you do it, and we'll kind of work through it together. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll learn a little more about artwork, and then pass it forward to other people who want to learn more from you. So with any of our characters, they're big general shapes, especially with characters like this. So now watch first what I do. I'm just going to draw a circle right here in the middle, just to kind of get our base shape set. Now you notice how big I drew it? It's not giant in the page, because I got to draw things on the top and on the bottom. But it's not going to be too small. And we're going to draw really lightly. Very important. We don't have erasers. We can't make a mistake. So we're going to draw really light, and then we're going to just darken up our drawings later on. So super loose. I'm sure you've all seen animation drawings where it's just like Sketch Central. So many sketchy lines, so many sketchy lines. That's because we're kind of finding our way as we go. And then we kind of choose our favorite lines and keep them. So there you go. We're just going to start out with a simple shape. I'm going to have Max staring forward and to. Now we're gonna, for those who had Goofy, we're gonna make it so they fit nice here. Goofy was staring to the right. We're gonna have Goofy staring to the left, or Max rather staring to the left. So right here, I'm going to draw a line to show where the front of his eyes are going to be, and he is going to be looking off to the side, not directly at the camera, but to the side, because it shows a lot more dimension. It makes the character feel more three-dimensional, like you can turn his head around. So this little basketball shape that I've got, I'm going to draw a little line there, and notice he's going to be looking off this way. So we have to think three-dimensionally with everything coming off into that area. Now, if you notice his head, his muzzle and his mouth and nose all are really low towards the bottom of his head. So we're not going to draw a line here like an equator. We're actually going to draw another line horizontally towards the bottom. And we're thinking round. So think of that line as if it is wrapping around the bottom of a ball. So right down here, not all the way at the bottom. Look carefully where I'm putting that. And that's going to help us guide in our finding lines and our shapes. Now, much like with Goofy here, if we kind of fill in this big shape with Goofy and with Max, it's a giant triangle. So thinking about that and how far forward his nose goes, and of course Max's nose isn't nearly as big as Goofy's yet. He will be a little bit of a smaller triangle. So watch the shape that I draw in here. Look how far down I am making that shape from his circular head. And it's going to be right around here. And that nose is going to go probably right here. But we're just going to draw this one shape right down there. Look at where that circle is, and look at where this triangular shape is at the bottom. Just filling that shape. And the more sketchy we do now, the more you'll eventually be able to see the character slowly start to develop on your page. And that's when you're seeing the character and you can start adding those little hints that makes that character who they are. Now I do like to use the nose as the direction, so I'm going to finish that nose off. Look how large his nose is, really round, where Goofy's nose is more of like a lima bean. Max's is basically just an oval that's kind of tilted. It does tilt up when he goes to the side, so the more he turns his head, the more you're going to notice that oval kind of pivot. So we're going to do just that. We're going to have an oval that's going to be leaning in, and I'm going to put it right around there. Now we're drawing lightly, so we won't have a problem moving that line around a bit more as we get darker with our lines later. And another thing I'm going to want to do is I might even want to lift up on my drawing as I'm already starting to see the character take shape. This is the fun part. You can actually adjust what you need. I'm going to put a little bit more height on his head. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit more. Now all of these light lines, these light sketchy lines that we're doing now, they're going to disappear when we start adding in our darker lines. Like magic, like Disney magic. All right, that feels a bit more comfortable because he's got a larger head. He's a younger dog. He is a dog, by the way, it's not a horse. And for his mask. Now with Goofy, if you notice, his eyes go right up into his head. Max isn't that way. He actually has eyes and then a forehead and then his little Mickey Mouse widow's peak here, followed by a whole lot of hair. So we are going to draw in this mask, and that's what we call this shape right here, that dark shape that kind of echoes his eyes. And I'm just going to draw that in. I'm not even going to draw the whole thing. I'm just going to start placing it in here really lightly. And remember, he is looking off to the side, so that part of the mask that's further away is going to be a little smaller. When things start moving in perspective, they get tinier. So I'm just going to draw the top of that shape, and we're going to connect the bottom of it down a little later on, but just to get it started. And then his eyes, much like his father, Goofy, his eyes are connected together. They kind of press together. So, and you notice how large they are within that mask shape. It takes up almost 75% of that volume in there. So that's what we're going to do. At that horizon line that we drew down here, I'm going to draw one of those eyes really big. This reference here actually helps out quite a bit. I'm going to draw in a large oval, just about that large. And then another circle, which goes almost all the way to the end, but really fills in that face shape that he's got. And again, really loose, really sketchy. We're going to darken those lines up later. There you go. All right, what do I want to do next? Let's see. I want to continue to get those big shapes down. So his hair, he's got a lot of hair. He hasn't brushed his hair in days, it looks like. And he's got like a widow's, almost like a cowlick that comes off of the back of his head right back here. So I'm going to sketch in an easy triangular shape that kind of bends, almost like a feather or a leaf. I'm not worrying about details. I'm just going to get a little shape right in the back of his head, almost like a shark's fin. And then another large shape, which is just going to wrap and lay over the front of his face. Let's see, it actually comes down right past the front of his eyes, right around the top of his eyes. So this shape here is going to look like this. Watch what I do. And then tuck it back in here. And we're going to worry about the details when we go back over our second pass. There you go. So that's the shape we're looking at. It's a little easier to start finding the character when you start out with these simple shapes. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to start messing with the cheeks. I see where these cheeks are. They start pretty low on his face, but do rise up above where the eyes are. You can actually see, I'm going to draw a line here, the top of the muzzle almost connects to the top of the cheek and almost connects perfectly with the bottom of the eye. So it's a good thing that we drew that horizontal line, because that's where I'm going to draw his cheek. And I'm just going to do a little half circle, a little curved line right here, just to show me where that cheek is going to end up, and we can connect it more. Actually, if you even want to just right now bring down that corner of his mask to meet that cheek line, you can do that. Starting to come to life. Now, where Goofy has two really large lips in the front of his nose, Max does not. He just has his nose that wraps underneath. So from his nose here, he's got two noses. This is actually the muzzle. We got the nose and then we got the muzzle like a dog. And I'm going to curve this line up. Now watch what I'm doing. I'm actually not going all the way to the bottom of that shape, because down here, that's basically where his chin's going to be. And I am going to have it a little more curved towards the front, but it starts to straighten out as it goes up into his cheek, like that. And like when you smile and your corner of your cheek goes up into your cheek goes up around your smile, as I manipulate my own face. That's exactly what's going to happen with Max and Goofy and Mickey and Donald. That's one of those little trademark shapes back there. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to draw his mouth. It can have opened or closed. I'm actually going to do it open. So I'm going to draw the inside of I'm going to draw the whole jaw first. Remember, the big shapes. So I'm going to draw a little bit here of that jaw coming down. Look at the shape I'm drawing. And it's going to come up to meet the inside of the cheek. It's not going to go all the way out to the outside, but it's going to go on the inside of the cheek here. Come down, and that's going to be his whole chin and jaw right there. And now I'm going to draw the inside of his mouth, basically the same line, only just up higher, because now we're drawing, I'm drawing the inside of his mouth. That's one thing I learned, is actually recite the part of the character that you're drawing in your head. Somehow it helps. It's a psychological thing. And if you're drawing the inside of the mouth, you think about it. There you go. And might as well get those teeth in here, like his dad. He's got 2 buck teeth. Also Dale from Chip and Dale have the same teeth. I guess they all see the same dentist. And this is going to be a square that tucks up into it. Now, I just drew it here. It looks like it's going into his mouth, but when you draw the second one, you'll see that it actually does kind of adorn the front of his muzzle. And they do curve. One angles down, the other one angles down. So that one's going to be here, and the other one's going to be here. And now I'm going to move up to the top of his muzzle. He's got 2 lines. Dad's got 3. He's got the big nose, and he's got another wrinkle, and then he's got the part that connects to his eyes. Max does not. He just has the nose and the one that connects to the eyes. I guess when you get older, you get extra wrinkle. So I'm going to curve that down right here, and then bring in the other one right where we had that horizon line before. So 1 line, 2 line, nice and curved right there. Like rolling hills, calling it happy hills, happy mountains. And let's see, his pupils. I like it when the character looks at us. I want him interacting. You're engaging when the character's looking at the camera. So instead of having him look forward like he is on all my references here, I'm going to draw it right down here, not completely tucked into the corner of the eye, because then it's going to look like he's looking behind him, but just in front of that. And remember, we're thinking as 3-dimensionally as possible. Think of the character as if he's kind of sculpted in front of you, or you're sculpting him out of clay, only on paper. Another thing that's really characteristic of him, like with his dad in his turtleneck sweater, Goofy's got a hoodie, and he's got a bit of a turtleneck on that hoodie. So his neck is going to would normally be behind his chin, But since his head is turned a little bit, I'm actually going to draw through that chin because I want to see exactly where it would pop out. And it would come out to just about here for that neck. And his hoodie will drop down to the V of his neck. So the front of it, which would be right here, would come down a little bit further. So that's where our little parallel shape, it's a tube, it's a neck, it's a tube. And then I'm going to draw in this shape, which is like an S curve because it's really laying down in front of his chest and then up over his shoulders. So that's the shape I'm going to draw. And I'm thinking about what is that collar on? It's on his chest and it's on his shoulders and it's around his neck. And I'm even going to extend that one line out on the top of it to really make it feel like it's baggy. He's got a baggy hoodie on. And I'm starting to add in some of the details. That's because now we can start adding in some of those details. Now, one more thing we're going to do first is his ears. Just like with his dad, they just hang, they flop down like a scarf. And they start here, right at the corner of his head. But where Goofy's actually will frequently drop in front of his cheeks, Max does not. He kind of brushes his ears back, I suppose, and they will fall down behind the cheeks, just like that. And think of it like it's a big teardrop, a long teardrop on one side and on the other. Okay, so with that, we have our first pass. Now we can start tightening up some of these shapes. If you see something that feels like it's a little too big or it's over too far, now's your chance to fix it. Because we're gonna press a little bit harder with our pencil and we're gonna make a darker line. I'm gonna go back and start where I began, right on the nose. So that nose, I'm gonna go nice and dark. Now we're gonna shade in that shape when we're done. But for now, I'm gonna use a nice thick and thin shape. Now we use thick and thin lines to help really just show the mass and the weight of the character. And a line would be thicker at the bottom because at the bottom of a shaper is where it would technically be heavier. So think about that. And I'm also kind of brushing in my lines. You can, if you really have a confident hand, you can do it that way. But I like to lightly brush in those strokes, almost like I'm painting or I'm coloring it in. And going back to my reference, I'm looking around at Max. I'm actually noticing right here, even though his muzzle does drop down, it straightens out and maybe even curves just a little bit before it goes into his cheek. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna round that bottom of his muzzle down, that thick and thin line, but I'm gonna stop where I was originally, and now I'm gonna straighten that line out and have it just curve backwards, lightly, really lightly. Those little subtleties is what brings this character out, and those little expressionary features. It's the subtleties, it's the details, but it's also the big picture. And when it hits the back of that cheek, remember the cheek goes in front of the mouth. Any shape that goes in front of the other will have the dominant line. So if you're ever wondering when you're crossing two lines, what goes in front of the other, whatever shape would be in front of the other shape. And since we're here at the cheeks, I'm gonna go ahead and do a nice thick and thin line. I'm gonna make the line thicker towards the outside, nice and thin towards the inside. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna go back to the eyes themselves, and I'm gonna darken in really nice and thin for those eyes. Nice round shapes. Towards the top, if you notice, there's a little bit of an overlap right here at the top of his eyes because that's basically where his eyelids are going to be. Even when they're nice and bright and his eyes are wide open, there's still a little indication of an eyelid. So we're going to have that little shape right there. On the outside, it's going to be pointing forwards. Now, if I was drawing the character looking directly at us, both of those eyelids would face each other, but since he's looking to the left, both of those eyelids are going to be angled towards the left. Okay? And I'm going to draw the outside of his head shape. I'm going to go almost parallel to the outside of his eye. I'm going to curve that in. I'm going to stop. He, unlike his dad, has got actual eyebrows. So I'm going to put those eyebrow details in. Watch what I do. Really thick towards the inside, thin towards the outside. Right there. And that shape is going to complement and basically be the same direction as the line on the top of his head that creates the eyes. I like that. He's got his widow's peak, that little shape of the mask that drops down between the eyes. And it's going to curve up and around and back down. I find also after I finish polishing up my lines a bit more, it's a little easier to draw a straighter line because your eye already sees where the line needs to go. You're not thinking about where the line needs to go. That's where your sketchy lines came in. Now you're just kind of polishing. Okay, now the back of his head, of course, is going to be curved. We're going to just stick with the outside of that circle. But his hair, now there's ways to draw the hair, good and bad ways. We don't want to do this. Watch what I do. Real lightly, I'm going to draw this shape, and this shape. Notice how even all of those curves are? Now it looks like a buzzsaw. We don't want to do that. Hair is crazy, hair is wavy. So we want to throw in a lot of different shapes, big shapes, small shapes, mini shapes. Just to kind of throw in some variety on that so it doesn't feel heavy and weighted, but it feels loose and airy. And same thing with the back of the head too. I feel the same way, kid. Oh my gosh, you have no idea. Whenever I finish a drawing, I'm like, okay. And then we're gonna connect it up. His hair technically is connecting to the front of his forehead, but since it's a black shape on a black shape, we won't really see it that much. But since we're working on lines right now, that hair is going to connect right around here. That's one of the reasons why we draw gloves on our characters like Mickey Mouse, because all of his fingers are black. You can't really see the shapes of the fingers anymore, so we put a white glove on them so now you can see where all the fingers are going. Otherwise than that, it'll just look like a blob of shape. I'm going to draw his pupils in now. Let's tuck those pupils in just behind the top of that muzzle line where his muzzle connects to his eyes. So you won't see the very bottom of the pupils, but they're going to just kind of tuck in like that. Now be sure not to make a mouse hole. It will curve in at the bottom. It's still a circle. You don't want to make a mouse hole. And then I'm going to darken in some of that line here, thick and thin. I'm going to go back down to the mouth now. Now the mouth isn't going to start all the way back at the cheek. If you notice, he actually starts a little bit into it, except for on this one, it's pretty far, but right around here, this is where we're going to start that mouth. So he's not, whoa, he isn't wide open, but just a little more subtle. He's in a good mood. He's not overly excited. He's just happy to be here. Again, if it's not looking perfect, don't worry. This is a practice. We're practicing. We're learning. With every drawing you do, you're going to get better and better and better. And then, of course, with his chin, we are going to straighten out that line right in the back here. And I'm actually going to do something here. I'm actually going to draw on the bottom lip. He's got a lip that actually connects from the other side. We're just going to mostly see it on his far side. And that lip is going to come down. It's going to pretty close to the line on the inside of his mouth, but it's going to tuck in right around here. That's just the bottom lip. And then his chin is going to separate. Now the lip is in front of the chin, so that gets the dominant line. And really study that shape there. It's going to come down a little bit further and tuck in behind that lip. There you go. Just like that. And if we wanted to get fancy, hey Buck, we're going to get fancy, turn it just like that. And then his ears, again, his ears stay behind his cheeks. We're going to clean up that shape of his tooth and the other tooth and his turtleneck. I'm actually going to add a second curve here to really give a lot of weight and folds to that turtleneck. I'm going to do one of these. And even though we're not going to draw his shoulder, we know that the shoulder is there. And also inside his mouth, since we are open with his mouth, we're going to draw a bit of the tongue. Now that tongue is going to be really squeezed in a lot of shapes here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to draw it right down here. We're going to start to see it between the lip and the tooth, and then finish it in back of that tooth. A lot of detail going on. The shapes start to get really falling into each other. So generally, we've got the character done-ish, except for we're going to shade in some of those shapes, and this is going to help us see the character. Take the corner of your pencil and just kind of left and right slide it back and forth. We're just going to do a nice little coloring in the darker shapes of his hair. His eyes, his nose. And we're going to also do the inside of his mouth, but not the tongue. Just there where his throat would be. His ears. And his neck. And that's how we draw a character like Max. And hopefully you learned a little something from this. One more thing, don't forget your name. You gotta sign your name right here. Very important. So when you sell it on eBay later for $1,000, don't you dare. So let's see your artwork. I want to hold it up. I want to see how good your Maxes are. Please. Wow, that's really good. Oh my gosh, this is great. Oh, you guys are amazing. Oh, this is so cool. Oh my God, keep those up. I wish I had my phone. I want to take a picture. Phenomenal. You guys deserve a round of applause. This is so good. Great job. Great job. So with that, I got like a couple more minutes if you have any questions. Do I have a couple more minutes? Yeah, I do. If you have any questions about art, or if you're an artist, you want to get a job at a studio somewhere, or whatever you want to do, if you want to be a freelancer, feel free to shoot it out right now. I can hear you. 2 years, 2 big years. Any questions? Yes? Favorite movie that I worked on? Probably Lilo and Stitch. Right answer, you like that one, good. It was so different from any film that we worked on prior. I mean, because I worked on Lion King and Pocahontas and Hercules, but then Lilo and Stitch came around and we're like, an alien in space in Hawaii. Okay, what could go horribly wrong? So it's one of those fun little ideas, and the art style was so different from any other film we worked on too. And that was one thing great about working on the movies, is the art style was always different. Everything was inflated. It was like Lilo's hands. It's like if you blew into it and her fingers popped. You know, everything was kind of that chubby look, where Pocahontas everything was angular. Hercules, everything was really spirally, and same thing with Mulan. Where Brother Bear, everything was very organic, like a mountain with Lion King. So you're always relearning more and more with every film. So, good question. Anyone else? Yes? Pardon? Oh, congrats on the blue name tag. Thank you. This is an honor I received. I've been with Disney 30 years, and I love to inspire other artists, and they nominated me for the Legacy Award. So that was really a cool thing. I don't deserve it. There's so many other people I work with who deserve these things, but it's great to have it. So yeah, one more question. Oh, good question. She asked if I trained traditionally at art school. Yeah, I went to the Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. We have Ringling Brothers here? Okay, you live in Sarasota? Nice. And that's where I learned illustration. I learned the foundations of drawing, figure drawing, still life drawing, just illustration in general. And then when I got the job at Disney as an intern at the animation studio, that's when I learned animation. Making these drawings come to life, I did a bouncing ball test and I saw my drawing was moving. And I was instantly bit by the animation bug. So I stayed and I worked for the studio about 12 years, and now with live entertainment and Imagineering, creating a world that you now walk into. That's what's cool about working with Imagineering, is you're in a movie theater watching it on the screen, but with Imagineering, you're now walking into that screen and you're living within the environment. That is so cool. So this is definitely an advancement, in my opinion. One more question, way back there. How do you come up with character ideas? It's the story. You know, you're inspired by something. You see something that inspires you, and you just kind of feel already an emotion towards something. So you want to design the character based around where are they. You got the who, what, where, when, and why. You know, who. an alien, where, Hawaii, etc., etc. So you just start looking at the references of that culture sometimes, space movies. If I'm doing something based in Africa, I'm gonna look at African artwork. I'm gonna like really use all those as inspirations to create that style. So all of those things come into place to create the final character. So anyways, I'm glad you had a good time. Hope you learned something, get inspired, and enjoy the rest of your day here at the EPCOT's International Festival of the Arts.
Friends, thank you for joining us for this presentation of the Animation Academy. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day here at the EPCOT International Festival of the Arts.